Well, thank you very much for having me here. Thank you for the kind introduction, and special thank you for pointing us out as a 3D print lab here in Europe. So what I want to do in the next 15 minutes is to give you a short overview how we started with 3D printing in Basel and how we were able to establish that within our hospital, and what are possible steps to get involved into 3D printing once you're in a hospital. So why would you want to establish that? I'll go over that very short. Then how to establish it, this will be the main part in a short outlook. The general reasons, we already saw that in the talk of our colleague from Lübeck. He had, I think, the same graphic but with a little bit other formattation. As you can see here, it's a market, and it's a market where you can earn some money, and it's a market where you need to stay competitive. So it's important to take part in that. On a more local level, this is the region where I'm living in. This is the city of Basel, and we have many hospitals around here. Basel is quite crowded, and there's competition going on. So for us as a hospital, it's important to differentiate ourselves. Am I too loud? Yeah, I can put it here. So. It's important to differentiate ourselves from the other hospitals to stay the innovation leader within our region. And then there's internal reasons that we have. The 3D printing in-house provides several advantages. We do not have the dependency on external service providers. We have the know-how in-house. The prints are available immediately. They do not get sent to us by UPS or whatever. And the whole printing process improves the cooperation and the communication between the different departments. And I don't know whom of you has worked within a hospital, and the tendency is that everyone works for himself, and the communication between departments is sometimes a thing that can be greatly improved, and 3D models can help on that. And it expands the possibilities across all disciplines. So this is a main focus for keeping 3D printing within house, that you do not have the setup in one department or in another department, and those departments maybe do not even know that the other department is doing 3D printing. So if it's centralized, the know-how that is acquired in one department and in the 3D lab through one project can flow to another project as well, thus creating synergies. And we also try to create a shift of mind within the hospital for 3D printing, because it's basically a whole paradigm change, that you do not order the thing that you have, or you do not use the thing that you used to have, that you have possible, but you can maybe create your own part. Something that Alex showed us about is just rethink the processes, what you are doing with different stuff, and maybe you have your own idea and can get a whole different approach for some processes. But then there's also the radiologic reasons. I'm a radiologist by training, and I just have this slide on here. I guess there's probably not too many radiologists in here, but radiology is a discipline that is at the crossroads somehow at the moment, because artificial intelligence is coming, that's without question, and they'll probably take parts of our jobs. Which is not bad, it will just change our job, but then we have to keep in mind what we will do and what our benefit for the clinicians can be, our service that we can provide to the clinician. And the subspecialization, as we saw in the different projects that were already proposed here today, is also a topic. If I read an MRI of a knee now, a very experienced knee surgeon is as experienced in reading MRIs of the knee as I am. So where's my benefit for providing additional know-how, additional knowledge for this person? So radiology needs to expand its service portfolio. And to illustrate this is a short history of the radiologic report. Basically, it used to be a piece of paper in the early days, and then at some point they started to put some pictures in there, and if you were lucky, you would even get something like this, like a VRT 3D rotation thing. But why not go from the 2D images that we have into the real world, into reality, and just print out the data that we have? And the data in most cases is usable for 3D prints. And why should the hospital care that radiologists take part in this whole 3D printing thing? Well, it's easy. You can see here a graphic from the Mayo Clinic from Dr. Matsumoto. Over the years, when 3D printing was in the engineering lab, there were several prints, but unless it was put into the radiology department and unless it was put into like in a radiology or 3D printed radiology run department, that prints did really take off at that point. And why is that? It's because radiology is at the crossroads of many disciplines. It's our job to provide imaging to all the clinicians, not just to the heart surgeons or to the orthopedic surgeons or the CMF surgery. It's our job to provide it to everybody. And thus we are at the crossroads, and we can push the 3D printing and the new possibilities that arise with the printing to all the different departments. And then there's obviously the patient-centered reasons to go into 3D printing. I won't elaborate on that. I think Simon has done a great job on that already. So how would you start a 3D printing lab in your hospital? Our suggestion is to look for a capable partner. On the one hand, the radiology department, I already pointed that out, but who could work with us there? It could be someone who produces something like this. This is a very, very early 3D model which was produced by Thomas Lamprecht, a CMF surgeon who by chance works in Basel as well, but they already got into 3D printing in 1987, so many, many, many years ago. And so this is our decision that we did in Basel. We partnered with the CMF surgery since they have this elaborate experience on 3D printing for many years. For teeth, for the CEREC procedure, for example, they have much know-how about 3D printing in the clinical context, in the surgical context, especially since the reconstructions of the face for complex tumor surgery or whatever is very, very advanced. And then on the other hand, it's us radiologists, we have the know-how about image acquisition, how to segment the anatomical models. And thus led to the 3D print lab in our hospital. So what is the next step? You need a printer. There's so many nice printers available. Which one should you get? Probably the most expensive one will just do. I would not go for the expensive one. I would go for a really basic thing that you understand at the beginning. Go for a fused filament printer if you want to get more into models, because that is really cheap. We saw in the presentation of the colleague from Lübeck that the model that was printed on ABS, costing about 5 to 10 euros, was about as good in precision as the $700 model printed on Tango or on some other material. So for the beginning, that might just do it. Or if you want to get more into like splints and guides, something that can be applied to the patients, then you might want to go with an SLA printer where you can also print material that is allowed to be placed on the human body. And then keep it simple. Do not place it somewhere across the street. Place it somewhere where you have access to it and where all the clinicians have access to it. This is a map of our hospital in Basel, and we did not place it here across the street, not in the University Children's Hospital, not somewhere here. Also, these are really nice old buildings. It would be nice to have a 3D print lab there. We printed it in the middle, or we did not print it, we placed it in the middle of the hospital to have all the clinicians access to. The clinicians, the surgeons, they do not have much time. They want to come by, they want to see a model, and then they want to go ahead what they're doing all day, operating or seeing patients. So the central location is really imperative. You have to have access to printers and the people who are running the lab. So in our case, it's placed next to the radiology department. And then just keep it simple. Make the whole process of ordering a 3D model simple. In our case, it's you can do a direct request from the electronic medical record to order a 3D print. There's just an email inbox that we look into. A new job comes in there, we process it. If it is rather complicated, then we'll get in touch with the surgeons or whomsoever. This is just an overview of the Konsil, as we call it in Germany. That's like the order that you can make here, and then we have this mutual inbox where you just get this order to perform a 3D print. And then the process and how to get to the print that was already outlined by Simon. You have to do the segmentation, some post-processing, then you print it. We archive the files then, and we do a photo documentation of the final print. And we have this cloud solution for all our printers that allows us to monitor the printers to see if something's going wrong. These are not available at the moment. These are printers that I can select now to start a new print, and that's available from anywhere in the world. It's a cloud-based solution. And so far in Basel, what have we done? We have now 13 printers on site. There's all FFF printers, so basic printers, one SLA and one PolyJet printer, and we did about 700 successful jobs. Keep in mind, those are not models, but successful jobs. We print other stuff as well. And we have used about 50 kilos of resin, of filament from last year, June, to today. So once you have set up your lab, what do you need to do to keep it running? You have to create somehow a regional network that might be dependent on where you are at. But in our case, as I already showed you, we are densely populated. There's many different hospitals around. And I think the future will go in that direction, that there's some centralized labs that have the possibility to provide 3D printing for many different hospitals around. In our case, we partner with the Kantonsspital Basel-Land and Aarau, which is the next canton next to Basel. And we also partner with some science departments of the University of Basel to keep up to actual developments in 3D printing, and we can use their facilities when we want to create a more complex print jobs that we maybe cannot do. And then you have to somehow communicate, you have to advertise the whole thing, because chances are that the people that you're working with, they might not have heard of the possibilities of 3D printing. So do some advertising. In our case, we had this booth at some internal medicine congress, or try to get to the press department and try to get some of the cases. That was a heart that we printed with a heart tumor, and try to get them to get some news about that. And this is a very well-known journal, the High Impact Factor in Switzerland. It's the equivalent of the Bild Zeitung, I don't know, Yellow Press, something. So, but if the news is good news though. And then focus on the costs somehow. Bear in mind, establish somehow a pricing structure. At the moment, we are working off funding money, but obviously at some point we try to cover the costs ourselves. So we have to charge for the models. You have to establish a pricing structure, and a pricing structure that fits into your current situation within your hospital, and expand your service portfolio. The service portfolio expansion that we do is, for example, this model. This was requested by the architectural department of our hospital. In the moment they're about to plan a new hospital, and they just wanted a patient room as a simulation, how they would work in there. And so we printed it out for them. And that's one of the parts that I covered in the early part as well, is that you just try to reach out with these printing capabilities to all the hospital, not just to the surgeons. That might be the nurses that have some good idea. Just advertise this thing for the whole hospital, or maybe even more on the outside, depending on what your focus should be. So as a take-home message, why would you want to have a 3D print lab within the hospital? It's to improve patient care, obviously, and the outcome, and to stay competitive and innovative within a hospital. How would you do it? Start small, try to get somehow interdisciplinary, that the know-how that you acquire within this lab flows into the different disciplines. And for the start, keep it simple. One printer will do, and you will see that this printer, once you give your surgeon a print and he'll have that in his hand the first time, he will just go, wow, how did you do that? I need that every time. And then somehow things get started, and you'll be up printing in no time. And then create a network within your region, and expand your portfolio to wherever the ideas are open there. And with that, thank you for your attention.